What's up, y'all? It's Miles the Millennial,
And it's your boy Rex Howard Jr.
and this is Let's Talk Like Men, the podcast where we have real conversations, providing real advice, giving this game to real men like you everywhere. And today we are here and we're going to jump into our financial boot camp series, man. This is our part one. Super excited for this. Over the last few weeks, we've wrapped up our series on Ready for War,
Yeah.
right? Where we talked about the different ways that you as a man need to be preparing yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially to make sure you're prepared for what's coming in the world.
Yes, sir.
Last week we did a men's cave recap where we
Yeah.
dove into an event we went to a couple weeks ago, hosted by Rex and a couple of other guys, and it was an amazing event with
Yes,
about
sir.
30 men being able to be intimate. Thank you, man.
Yes,
We
sir.
appreciate it. Awesome conversations, and so we had a really good recap on that one. Now we're jumping into a four-part series. So May is going to be all about financial education. And so in this first episode, we are going to dive into personal finance and budgeting. And we have a guest today who's going to introduce himself in a second. And he's really going to give us a lot of games, some tips, some mindsets that we need to have in terms of understanding personal finance, how a man needs to manage his money, and how to provide it just in a literal sense to everybody who's watching. You can apply it to your life as well. So we're going to let our guest introduce himself really quick.
And I know I have a difficult name, so we're going
Go
to start
ahead.
there. My name is Ikechi Ukazu. I'm a personal financial educator. And what that means is I want to make sure I'm providing people with education and resources to make the best decisions with their finances. And so, definitely in the world of finance, we have a lot of people who are just focused on getting to the end goal
Mhm.
without involving God into those
Mm.
decisions. So, I want to make sure I'm bringing faith, bringing morality, and also making sure people achieve their fulfillment and their purpose with their finances.
That's amazing.
Geeks.
Love that.
Yeah.
So,
Right there,
without
yes, sir.
further ado,
Hey,
let's talk like men.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So let's jump right into our hot topic for the day. So we're gonna get things
Okay.
going with a little bit of a little, I don't want to call it mess, but something that's a little
Let's
trendy
get,
in
let's
the
get
world.
messy, man.
Cool. So topic of the day
Mm.
for our hot topic is going to be, right? There's a lot of people, women always give their standards on
Mhm.
what they want in men, right? Men give their standards on what they think a man should be,
Mhm.
right? When it comes to dating, you hear a lot of conversations about, oh, if you're not making six figures a year, you don't need to be out here dating.
Oh my
You
gosh,
shouldn't be
that's
with
good.
anybody.
That's
What
good.
are your thoughts on it? Does a man need to make six figures a year for him to be of value enough to be dating and out in the field?
Oh, this is really good. I mean, I can start.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, yeah. I mean, because we're going to the conversation of what it means to be high value.
Mhm.
And I'm going to get into it when we get to our main conversation is that value can always be internal versus external.
Mhm.
And so I rather men focus on their internal value. And then if it manifests being external as far as six figures, then that's something that's added.
I
But
like that.
you are able to take care of a woman with not only just your money, but also being a protector, being a
Mhm.
provider, a leader. Like stuff you've talked about, I'm
Yeah.
sure, Rex.
Yes,
And
sir.
and then of course money is a way that you can protect. And of course, if you don't have God in it, then I don't
Yeah.
care how much money you have,
Yeah,
you're not gonna be able to take care of the way she wants to be taken care of.
that's powerful.
That's
bro.
amazing.
That's
Yeah.
powerful. I love that already. Rex,
Yeah.
you want to go? What's your opinion?
Yeah, man, if that was the case, then what would we be doing?
Hmm.
Right? Right. So you're saying in high school you're not supposed to date. You're saying in college you're not supposed to date.
Yeah.
Mm.
You're saying even if you're trying to find your ways in your 30s and your 40s, you're not supposed to date.
Yeah.
So you're saying I can't have love or I don't deserve love because I don't hit that six-figure mark?
Come on.
Yeah.
What happens if I do hit it though, right? I just had a conversation not too long ago with one of my guys. He said, Rex, last year was my first year making 250 plus.
Mhm.
He was like, that's the most time I spent away from my wife. That's the most time I spent away from my kid. And that was the most depressed I've ever been. He said there was
Dang.
plenty of times that I sat on the porch and I cried because I was so stressed out and so spread thin. And my wife needed things and my kid needed things, but I didn't have the time and the energy to give it to him.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a great
So a lot of
conversation.
people like the number. They like the idea of saying that my man makes six figures or feeling like I make six
Right.
figures, but they don't like the pressure that comes with that.
Mhm.
But it does come with pressure.
The reality is we attach value, and we
Mhm.
shouldn't, but we attach value in terms of who we are as a person
Yeah.
and in terms of who other people are, especially men, based on the currency that's in their
Mhm.
account.
100%.
Right? Not about who they actually are,
Right.
what they bring to the table, the type of person they actually are.
Right.
And even more so into this, let's talk about the fact that marriage is one of the best vehicles to increase wealth. When
100%.
two people are
Yeah.
bringing in
Yeah.
income,
Yeah.
when you can live off of one and invest the other, or all the different ways that when you have
Yeah.
combined people working towards a goal together, you can
Mhm.
get there faster, you can get there further,
Yeah.
right? So even if I'm not a six-figure earner, does that mean that I shouldn't pursue marriage? I
Absolutely
shouldn't
not.
pursue the woman that God has out there for me, knowing that marriage is a vehicle to improve wealth?
Yeah, and to that point as well, I mean, what's to say that you can't work with a woman that's trying to work with you to get to that
Exactly.
six-figure mark? I
100%.
mean, and then also if you get to that six-figure mark, and then you have all these women that are basically trying to jump on the train once you're
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do they really want you for you?
Mhm.
Right.
I mean,
You speaking, man.
It's a whole different ball game. And
Yeah.
then what the Bible says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and
Yes.
receives favor from the Lord. What if that favor
Yes.
is earning that income
Everything.
that's going to protect the
yeah,
family?
man. Yeah,
I love
Right.
that.
this is great.
That's a really good start,
Great.
guys. I don't know if
Great.
anybody else has anything to
very,
add
very
to that.
hot topic.
Oh yeah, but I just will wrap that topic up
Yeah.
by just saying this: as a man, it is important for you to make sure you're getting your finances in order. Finances are important. They should be one of your highest priorities. But do not assign your value as a man to how much money you have. Because then you're going to be defining yourself by a worldly thing and not by what godly principles have been instilled in you and what God has stated you need to be evaluating yourself on. There's a principle in the Bible. The Bible shows you the type of man you need to be.
Yeah.
And in and of that, he didn't attach a particular dollar amount.
Yeah.
He didn't say 100,000 or a million,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so work on the other characteristics, like you've already said,
Yeah.
to be able to be that provider, not just the money, because you might lose yourself and not like what you get in the end.
Exactly. And I'm going to say one more thing because I've been reading the book of Proverbs
Yeah.
religiously lately. Proverbs 23, verse 4 says, do not wear yourself out to get rich.
It's right there.
On that same verse. What profit a man to gain a whole world and lose it? That's
Yeah, exactly.
The Bible correlates in so many different ways, and we have these people that are losing themselves trying to get these goals and get these dollars a month, but also lose their souls in the process.
Yes.
So I think it's not a and or thing. It's kind of a you want to make sure you're doing both at the same time.
100%.
Yeah.
Working on the spiritual self, but also working on your way to take care of people.
That's
love
good.
Yeah.
Catchy, you on fire already, bro.
Thank you, man.
I love
Hot
this.
topic, right?
Hot
It's hot.
topic was fire. All right. I don't think anybody else has anything
No,
else
we're
to
good
add
to
to
go.
it.
I'm good.
All right, perfect. So what I want to do now is move into our main topic, which is about personal finance and budgeting.
Yep.
So we can jump right into the questions that we have and you can
Mhm.
respond that way. Or if you'd like, if you have something that you already want to speak to on it, then we can go straight into that first and then build questions off of that.
We can go off the questions first.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So Rex, why don't you go first with your point number one?
Okay.
Mhm.
What's your first question when it comes to personal finance, budgeting, manhood for Ikechi?
Okay, cool. So first question is, how much money should a man have saved for emergency/rainy days?
Cool, and it's a pretty simple answer. I know you guys already talked about some of this stuff. You guys already probably know this stuff. It's 3 to 6 months of savings, just making sure in case of anything were to happen that you have a rainy day fund. Because one thing we know that life is gonna life.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna have things that are gonna happen, whether it be a car breakdown, whether it be a medical emergencies, and you don't want to make sure. And I actually, so a little bit of my story. I grew up with my dad who thought credit cards were basically the emergency funds, you know? So, and a lot of people still think that way.
Yes.
So it's best to make sure you make a plan to have your own savings for when things happen, for when life happens, you're ready for life.
Yeah. I
That's
like that.
good.
Yeah.
So when you say 3 to 6 months of
Mhm.
savings,
Yep.
are you saying 3 to 6 months of your monthly income, 3 to 6 months of what you're paying every month in bills? What is the criteria that we're multiplying?
Great. It's going to be your expenses.
Gotcha.
So you look at your expenses for 1 month and say if it's $3,000, make sure you have three to 6 months of that. So that would be $9,000 to about what?
18,000?
Yeah, 12.
9 to 18?
Yeah, $9 to $18,000.
Gotcha.
You want to make sure you have that money for emergencies.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good. So guys, that brings up another point.
Yeah.
You have to know how much you spend every
Yeah,
single month.
yeah.
You have to track your expenses. So do you have any advice for people in how they should go through budgeting their finances?
I love this question. So I would definitely use apps. There's apps like Empower. There's apps like Mint actually just went away, but one of my favorite apps right now is using Empower that'll track your finances. You know exactly what's going in and what's going out. If you don't know your net income at the end of the month, you don't know what's coming in and what's coming out. You don't have a good grasp of your finances.
I like that.
So yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Do you have before a person is investing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Should they get that savings first, or should they try to build both at the same time? Is there a priority? Should they do the investing first and then the
Okay.
savings?
This is a great question because you want to make sure you when I'm working with my clients on is making sure they go through a certain formula or order operations. You know how that is like in math where you have like your addition, subtraction, whatever. If clients are trying to say if they have so much in debt, I'm not trying to make sure they're working on savings. They want to have savings. They want to focus on their credit and getting out of debt first
Gotcha.
before they have savings
Mhm.
and before they start getting to investing.
good.
You don't want to jump into investing and then whenever something happens, you're taking all your investments to pay off those
Yeah.
emergencies. So yeah.
So in other words, what you're saying is if I have $10,000 of debt,
Mhm.
and before I think about investing, before I think about saving, before I think about an emergency fund, I need to be focusing on knocking out that debt.
Exactly, because definitely if you're looking at that credit cards have 24 to 29% interest rate, that's
Yeah.
so much money.
Yeah.
If you're trying to invest at the same time, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're losing 29% on the credit cards, but you're gaining 10% in your investments, you're
Mhm.
still losing, netting 19%. So you're losing overall. So I'm really trying to focus on people to not run before you walk. You know, so make sure you start focusing on getting out of the credit cards, then you start saving, and then you start investing. Yeah.
I like that.
That's good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to this next
Mhm.
question. What are the biggest mistakes you see men making when they get paid?
We're not thinking about themselves first,
Mm.
you know, and not in a
That's
selfish way. Let's make
facts.
sure
Yeah.
we
That's
quantify
facts.
this.
Yeah.
So have you guys heard about the 70-30 rule?
Yeah.
So, okay. So basically making sure
But let's break it down. for
yeah,
the
let's break it
people.
down. Yeah. So make sure you have money go in 3 places before you do anything else. So make sure you have money go to God, which is your giving or your tithing, if you will. Then you go to savings, and then you go to your investing. And once you have those three things covered, then you start worrying about your expenses, your rent, things like that.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't. It's a mindset, right? If you want to make sure you're building wealth, you have to make sure you do it as like a discipline. You guys work out. I'm sure you guys
Yeah.
work out.
Yeah.
You do those things first, you know,
Yeah.
first thing in the morning before anything else happens. So you make sure you knock it out before you do anything else.
I like that.
That's
So
really
paying
good.
yourself first.
Yeah, paying yourself first. Yeah.
Rex, you about to say something?
Yeah, I mean that's amazing.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? That's
yeah.
amazing because I know a lot of people. I thought you was getting ready to say, not being selfish with themselves, but also focusing on everybody else, the needs of
Right.
everybody else. Because where I grew up, that's been the focus, right?
Yeah.
When you make money, you got to make sure, oh, so and so gets paid. You got to make sure this bill gets paid. You got to make
Right.
sure so and so has what they need,
Right.
and nobody's thinking about what do I personally need.
And all these things tie in together. You know, it's almost like that whole self-love thing that's really popular right now. Like if you don't have enough to give from your tank, you're gonna be empty.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to make sure you kind of take care of yourself, put that oxygen mask on first as far as your finances, so you can start taking care of everyone else.
That's amazing.
You know?
That reminds me of a conversation we had previously
Yeah.
where we were talking from a relationship standpoint. And it's, this expectation that, man, I got to pay for all of this. We got to go on these trips.
Yeah.
You're always trying to please your girl, right? You're always trying to please your wife. You're always trying to please your partner. And what ends up happening is you'll forsake your own financial journey to make them happy.
Right.
And so you're in the position where it's like, man, I could have saved $1,000 this
Right.
month, or I could have put
Right.
$1,000 towards this, but the lady's asking for a date night. The lady's been really wanting a trip to go on.
Right,
And
right.
this is a repeated cycle. And you always find that whatever little you did have that you could have put towards your plans end up going towards your girlfriend, right?
Right.
And that ends up pushing you back further and further on your own journey.
Yeah. There's a concept that means like, living life out of the overflow.
Mm.
And so basically, once you start taking care of yourself and start planting those seeds, especially when it comes to investing, you'll have more than enough to make sure say if you're at a pot, that
Yeah.
all that water's flowing and take care of other people. We have to make sure you have those disciplines at first.
I like that.
Yeah, man.
So build the pot first,
Yeah, build the
Yeah,
pot, then have the
exactly.
overflow.
then have the overflow. And that's what people get to reap the benefit
So good.
from.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
That's good. So, when it comes to just relationships in general, and it comes to finances, what are some boundaries that can be set around your money?
That's good.
Especially when it comes to dating. Let's
Yes,
go
yes,
there.
let's talk
Because
about
there are girls.
Yeah.
I love this conversation. That'll be like, take me to the most expensive restaurant as a
Absolutely.
way to prove your value and prove your. And men, I think we have to understand our value as who we are. And yes, you can take these girls to these places, but you have to like work into a relationship before you get into
Right.
those things. So I think making sure you realize that you lead with yourself first.
Yeah.
And you say that you are a man. You're a man that God has created. You have your own value, and then you make sure that you set a budget for what you're trying to spend, and don't go over that budget. Doesn't matter what she's asking
Yes.
for, whatever. Because once you start going over that budget, that's telling yourself that you're not enough for that girl. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's making sure you and all this stuff when it comes to self, it's all correlated, right? You have to know your own value, your own worth before you get into these relationships, so you're not overextending yourself.
That's good.
I got something for that
Go
one,
ahead.
man.
Let's go.
That's good
Yeah.
because when you're talking about those expectations, this is
Yeah.
something that I
Yeah.
had very early conversations. That first year or so when
Mhm.
me and my lady were together, it was a really big thing because for me, and this is partially my fault
Right.
because I was in college, but I had a really good internship.
Right.
So I wasn't paying any bills
Right.
and I was just making a lot of money
Right.
for a 21-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And so I was buying her Gucci belts. We were going on $300
Right,
dates
right,
and stuff.
right.
And it's great, right? But I'm introducing her to this
Yeah.
environment, this expectation.
used to that.
She's getting
Yeah.
used to it.
Yes, yeah.
And what I started to realize is there were times where I started to feel like she felt entitled
Yeah.
to some
Huh.
of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it was just an expectation, like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. Who said that that's what we're going to do
Yeah.
with my money?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
We didn't even have a conversation to
Right.
consult if
Right.
this is what we actually want to do. You want to do it and you
Right.
expect that it's just going to happen because it's always happened.
Right.
And I had to start setting a lot of boundaries very early on. Like, look, I want this to be clear. We're not married yet, right? That's what we're working towards. But right now we are still dating.
Yeah.
My money is my money. Your money is your money. What we choose to do for each
Yes.
other,
It's
it's
a
a
choice.
choice.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a choice. Nobody is entitled to it. And if at any point a
Mhm.
person wants to say, hey, I can't do that or I don't want to do that with my money, that is that person's right. And the other person is not entitled to sit there, get upset about it over something that they didn't work for. That's
Exactly.
their finances.
And I love that. I mean, basically, it comes down to the whole budgeting thing.
Mhm.
And we can say, but nobody likes the B word, which is
Yes.
budgeting. There's two words that I used to interchange for that: either a spending plan or this phrase that means give every dollar a purpose. This is something that's very
Mhm.
popular with the Dave Ramsey community.
Mhm.
So making sure before you get paid, you know almost like you have little soldiers. You know exactly where your dollar is going to be going before you get it.
Absolutely.
And then so even if you have like a dating fund, then you say, okay, I'm gonna put this X amount of money for dating.
Mhm.
And you do not go over that because
Mhm.
you want to make sure that your money is going exactly where your purpose is going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
That's amazing. I think that goes into the next question, actually.
Mhm.
What's the most appropriate way to think about your money?
Yes.
Let's hit
I
that.
love
Yeah.
it. This is a fun podcast.
Yes,
You guys are
yes.
awesome. I mean, in line with your purpose, and I think once you start thinking about these things as a stewardship, as something that God has given you, then you have a whole different mindset. And also, there's a verse I want to read.
Okay.
Cool. I think we're cool on reading verses. here, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Pull that Bible up 3 times an episode.
Awesome. And so, of course, everyone knows, Proverbs 3:5, trust the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will direct your paths. But also go with your finances too, but also continuing on in 9 through 10, honor the Lord with your wealth and the first fruits of all your crops, and then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will be filled with new wine, which basically means that everything that God has given you, if you honor him, he blesses you and it expands.
That's
Yes.
good.
You know, so I think we have to make sure that we think about our money as a vehicle for God to give his blessings to us, but also be a blessing to other people. And that's how we
That's
think about
good.
our finances, being a blessing to other people and also to ourselves.
Man, that's crazy that you
Yeah.
say that, man, because that's something that I've wrestled with at times in life,
Mhm.
especially when you're in college and
Yeah.
during that time period where you have a little bit but you don't have a lot to give.
Yeah.
And so you show up at church and you're like, I got $10, God.
Yeah,
But this
okay.
$10 could give me a meal later on. This
Yeah.
$10
Yeah,
could,
man.
get me into this party or whatever it is that you
Right,
wanted to do.
right.
And what I ended up finding out was somehow, some way, through the magic workings of how God works, and
Yeah.
it's
So
right in line with the
It
principles.
is.
When I would give God that money, somehow, some way, it would always come back to me in increase.
Right.
It was never even just a 1-for-1 return. I
Right.
gave 10, I ended up getting 10 back from somebody. No, I would give 10 and then magically come across $20 on the ground.
Yeah.
Right.
Or somebody in my family would feel like blessing me, or the pastor would come and say, you know what, man, I feel like you need something, and send me $100. I'm like,
Mhm.
why?
Yeah.
Why is this
I'm telling
happening?
you,
But it's
man.
because when you pour into God and you put him first, he's always gonna bless you.
Yeah.
Or his people.
Yes.
People. And there's another verse that goes along with that. My God will provide all your needs according to his riches and glory.
Mhm.
According
God
to
owns
his, yep.
everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't realize how rich our Father is, and
Yep.
so I mean, once you're kind of connected to this to Him, you're connected to whatever you need. And also,
Absolutely.
David said it too. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want.
Mhm.
And He's a good Father. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? But of course, he teaches us how to be wise with the blessings He's given us. So in order, and also another verse too. He who's faithful with a little will be faithful with a lot.
Absolutely. We
Yes.
said that in Bible study just the
Yes.
other day.
Like,
That's good.
Yeah.
it's all in alignment. I mean, of course, he's not going to bless you if you're not going to be thankful for what he's given you.
Yes.
So yeah.
That's good.
It's crazy. God literally gives us the blueprint
On everything.
for every aspect of life.
Everything.
It's just about whether you're gonna trust them.
And of course, I mean, when it comes to finances and everything, there's also the wisdom to grow these things. Because I mean, I think even in the church, I love that we can talk about this as well. Sometimes it's been extorted. Sometimes people
Yes.
can give overextend where they
Mhm.
have no wisdom with their finances. Now they're
Mhm.
broke. And it's almost like, did God tell you how to? I want to make sure people are wise with their giving and wise with their finances. He wants us to be able to give, but also out of the abundance and also to
Yes.
trust Him. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. You
Yeah.
know, I it's experiences in my family, so I'm
Yes. Yeah.
not gonna say any specific names, but I have a family member that will give everything to the church.
Yeah.
I'm talking about every single thing,
It's hard.
and
Yeah.
leave nothing for herself, leave nothing for the family, but
Yeah.
everything to the church, and that's just the sacrifice I was made. And then I remember growing up, I used to go to a church with her, and the pastor used to have everybody saying, "Money, come to
No,
me
see, and this is where
now,"
it gets. This
and
is
that's
where,
where the
yeah,
mindset shifted for
bro,
everybody, and it was next level.
bro. This is where it gets. I mean, also we have to just make sure we're being careful because the church, some churches, not all churches, but will take advantage of people just to make
Yeah.
sure they get their money. You see these. I'm gonna say stuff. Pastors be wearing like Balenciagas or like Jordans, and everyone else is like struggling and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I think it takes a lot of wisdom, which we also get from him,
Yeah.
to make sure we can give, but also know what to do with what we receive as well.
That's good.
That discernment.
Yes.
I want to
Yeah.
really quick bounce back to something that you said when
Yeah.
we asked about kind of the mindset behind money, because
Mhm.
I think that is something we need to emphasize more. Um, the conversation you said, you treat every one of your dollars like they're little toy soldiers, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when I read
I'm a Marine too, so like
facts,
that's
facts.
kind of what go ahead.
I read
Yeah.
I want to say it was Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah.
but it could have been another one of those books. But they were talking about the fact that you should treat your money like employees. Like that's how I look
Same
at it. So like
thing. Same
soldiers,
thing.
I say employees.
Same
And the
thing.
way I reason why I say employees, because it's very easy for me to say when you work a job and you're
Mhm.
an employee for somebody, everybody has a role and
100%.
everybody must be at work or you get fired.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. And so
That's
it's
it.
like my dollars can't just be being idle. Right. Some of you, your job is to sit and be ready for anything that happens. Your job is to go in the savings. Some of you, your job is to go work and grow. I need you to reproduce, right? So
Yeah.
those are the ones that I'm investing. Some of these dollars, I need you to be for fun. I need you to be for
Yeah.
bills. I need you to be for God, right?
Mhm.
Every last one of you has a job. And if I don't have you at work, then I am failing as your boss,
That's
right?
good.
And I
That's a
think a
really
lot
good
of people, if
mindset.
they adopt that mindset, it'll make them look at their money a little bit different and say, I can't just throw you away, man. Like, you're an employee. You're supposed to work for me.
Exactly. That's a great mindset. I love that.
That's good, man.
What's your next
Did
question,
I have
Mike?
the next question?
Yes,
Yes, I
sir.
did. So this actually kind of flows. We already
Mhm.
talked about this one, so I'm gonna skip to my
Yeah.
next one.
Okay.
What are some good resources men can use outside of this episode and what we're talking
Yeah.
about here in order for them to help with budgeting and understanding money?
God, I love. I mean, we're in this age right now with the internet that there's so many things available right now, and of course, I want to make sure people use the ultimate resource. Make sure you pray about anything that you're seeing online,
Yeah.
and also even with my clients that I'm working with, I try to make sure that okay, anything I'm giving you, I want you to make sure you're checking with other people
Yeah.
because there's so much stuff out there. But definitely, I mean, some books I definitely recommend would be Simple Path to Wealth. That is one of the greatest finance books ever. Please read
I
that
like
book.
that.
That teaches you how to invest, teaches you how to save your money, how much of your money needs to be going to investments versus savings, and also exactly what to invest into. You can become, I mean, very wealthy based off of that book as well. Also, that'd be, let me see, what's the other one I was going to do? The Richest Man in Babylon, which is
I
a
love that.
classic. Yeah,
Love
I
that.
mean, just basically, to make sure that every single a part of everything you earn is yours, and that's a
Yes.
mindset we talked about as well. And you get that stuff from that type of book as well. So, and as far as podcasts, there's a bunch of them I really love right now. My favorite right now is Rich Habits podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's two entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
that are really making it. One that's older and one that's younger, and they give you a mindset about how to create wealth. And it's one of the best podcasts ever. And it's also not even one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that it doesn't take to have quality over quantity.
Yes.
They just give so much wisdom and so much content in that podcast that's really amazing.
That's good.
Okay. So, quick question. So,
Yeah.
what would you say to those people who are working a job where
Mhm.
all of their money has to go to bills?
So good, man. This is also, and I think goes back to that first question too. kind of what is the mindset behind money. And the thing that we have to get, I was really thinking about this on the way over here, is that we have a lot more control of our finances than we think we do. And it's a mindset to not let your external circumstances dictate how much you have. And also being in that situation where I've been there too. It's very common, where you're basically paying bills off of your money. You're living
Yeah.
from paycheck to paycheck. That is a mindset, but you can break that
Yes.
by, I'm sure you guys are into like self-development,
Yeah.
right? So basically you get paid in this country, in this world, based off of how much value you're bringing to the
Yeah.
marketplace, bar none.
Mhm.
If you're trying to increase your money, you have to start there. You have to look inward and say, how much value am I bringing
Yeah.
Yeah.
to either what this workplace or to the world? And
Mhm.
if it's not lining up, you have to really look inward and say, okay, how can I increase my value? Increase your skills. Skills pay the bills.
Mhm.
That feels like a soundbite right there.
It is.
But skills pay the
That's-
bills.
It'll be a clip.
For sure.
Please don't. I even paused there too. No, but basically, if you increase your skills, you're going to increase the amount of money that you're earning. And we look at these really great, people who are earning massive amounts of money.
Yeah.
LeBron James,
Yeah.
all they're solving problems on a really high level, which is why they're earning so much money.
Yeah.
So with us, how we can replicate that on our level is just increase how much value you're adding to the marketplace. And you guys are case in point. The amount of value, this whole setup looks amazing. You guys are adding so much value, and the wealth you may get may also be monetarily, but also just the feedback you're getting as well.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
don't always just look for the money. Chase the passion, like I know you guys are doing as
Mhm.
well, and then the money will follow.
That's good.
Yeah.
See, I love what you're saying, because the people out there that may struggle with what skills can I bring to the table. One of
Yes.
the first places to start is your energy and effort, right? You control those two.
Yes.
Every single day that you go into the workplace, right? A lot of people go into their job very mundane. They're not passionate about it. They
Yeah.
have no care for it. And they're just doing exactly what needs to be done so they can clock in and clock out.
Yeah.
The return from that is going to be the same.
Mhm.
It's going to be a this for that rather than any type of exponential growth. You're
Right.
not going to get any real reward
Right.
or opportunity out of
Right.
that.
Right.
Versus when you show up as your full and best self every single day, no matter what the job is, whether you like it or whether you don't,
Mhm.
you're putting energy into the world, you're putting your best foot forward, and inevitably opportunities will come out of
Right.
that. Opportunities for growth and promotion, whether that's within the company,
Yeah.
outside of the
Yeah.
company. You will be in a better position naturally because you're putting your best foot forward every single day. But most of us show up half-assed, and
Yeah.
then we are disappointed when we get half-assed results.
Right.
That's
And
good.
I mean, there's so many things to look at there. First of all, if you're paying everything on bills, you have to also look at your bills.
Yes.
See if there's anything you can take out, but there's so many things you can just, I would say, sit down and do an honest check of what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
where your money is going. Just like you said, are you really taking care of your employees or your
Yeah.
soldiers?
Yep.
And then also, looking into how you're showing, but like you said, in the workplace, are you adding as much value as you possibly can?
Yeah.
Are you doing your very best? And if you're not, then definitely check there first before you change anything.
Yeah.
Don't try to jump from job to job if you're not
Mhm.
fixing yourself and not working on yourself.
That's good.
That's
Rex.
good. Yeah, something just came to mind. I remember back, I think 2021, I came up with this exercise called the financial check-in.
Okay.
Right. So essentially, what you do is, and it's for everybody that's listening too, you go to your banking app or go to the website and you print off your bank statement for the month.
Mhm.
Right. You
Mhm.
put a check by everything that's a bill, everything that you need. Right. You put an X by everything you spent money on that you didn't need. You put a circle by everything you spent money on that added value to you.
Yeah.
Right. And then you also put a mark beside tithing. Right. And you add those numbers up and you can see where your money is going.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you don't, like you said before, if you don't know where your money is going, it's just going to continue to go away.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we may be paying for, subscriptions
Mhm.
that we don't know. We signed up for something a year and a half ago and they're still taking $10, $15 a month
Absolutely.
and we don't even know it. But that money
Yeah.
adds up.
does.
And then if you're not in a good financial position, if that $15 or $25 amount subscription comes out at the wrong time,
Yeah.
It gets you.
It put you in the red.
Yeah.
It's very possible, and these check-ins, right? You can do these check-ins on an annual basis. I like to do a weekly check-in. I call it my general time, almost like I'm a soldier, getting trying to make sure I have my week in order. But you can just make sure you just look at your finances every single week, and the people, we're and basically wherever you give your focus, it's going to appreciate, it's going to grow. So if you start to focus on your finances at least on a weekly basis, you're going to see that start to expand and see that start to fulfill and be what you want it to be.
I mean, the general principle is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
That's
100%.
it. That's it.
So
Yeah.
if you rarely look at your finances
Yeah.
throughout every single month, if you get paid, I think the simple rule of thumb is you should be looking at your finances at least as many times as you get paid in a month. If
Yeah.
you get paid twice a
Basically.
month, minimum you need to be looking
Minimum.
at your finances
Minimum.
twice a month and evaluating your budget,
Minimum.
making sure everything's aligned. And once you get used to it and things are more consistent,
Right.
it'll get to a point to where you don't necessarily have to check it as often because you know your plan.
Exactly.
And you have it all automated, you have it in order. Things are
Exactly.
set up for you. But you have to pay attention to your money. I'm even reminded of a story
Right.
that Shaquille O'Neal talked about where he had financial advisors, right?
Yeah.
And he was letting them control his money. And he's thinking everything is in line, everything should be good. And come to find out that money is funny and it wasn't the way he thought it was.
That's so good.
And he learned from that lesson and said, I never want to be the person that's the least educated in the room. How do I know less about my money than the people who are, I'm entrusting to take care of it? I should know more than them. It should be my plan and they're executing it.
Exactly. And that's why I talk about the financial service industry, especially with being a personal financial educator.
Mhm.
I'm trying to make sure I'm educating people to empower them
Mhm.
to make their own decisions with their
Absolutely.
finances and make sure they get the right habits, almost like a coach as well.
Yes.
Because you don't want to be in a position where you're just, basically giving people fish and not teaching them how to fish with their
Yes.
finances. So I love that.
But a lot of people in business are that way.
Yeah.
They would much rather you have to be self-reliant on them,
Mhm.
right? You have to rely on them rather than being able
And
to
it's
do it yourself.
and definitely, of course, I want to talk about this too, because in the financial services industry, a lot of people who are just make sure that you are being. We talk about resources and everything. There are a lot of good people out there, even financial advisors. Just making sure that they are working with the plan, like you said, of what you're trying to do, and not trying to take over your plan or take over your financial life because they're not you. They don't have your purpose in mind. They might not even be Christian. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So you really have to make sure you're being intentional about where you're putting your money and who you're spending your money with or who you're working with for your finances.
I love that.
That's good. So I have another
Yeah.
question before we move forward. If somebody is working on their finances, at
Mhm.
what point is a good point to go to a financial educator or to get an advisor?
It really depends, right? Because everyone has their different dollar amount with these financial advisors or whatever it is. For the clients that I'm working with right now, I want to make sure they have a good foundation. So just making sure that at least they're sort of stable with their income. So I might not work with anyone on their if they don't have anything to really work on. I might kind of just give them the homework and everything. But to work with a financial advisor, you want to make sure that you're at least having some sort of at least over 50,000, I would say.
15
Yeah,
or 50?
50,
Okay.
50. So a lot of, I mean, especially for these financial advisors, they're really looking for wealth.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure you kind of reach a certain dollar amount
A little
before
bit
you
of
start
a
working
nest
with them.
egg.
Yeah.
So is that 50,000 in your account or 50,000 that you're
On
making?
an annual basis.
Okay,
That
okay.
you're earning.
That you're earning at least 50,000.
Yeah.
I guess once you start including the fees that they're going to take a part of service,
Right,
it starts
right,
to not make
right.
sense if you don't have enough to really
So I
put
mean,
down.
when it comes to the financial advisors and everyone you're working with, they want to make sure you at least have some sort of income to make sure you're taking care of them and make sure you're paying them.
Yeah.
So it really depends. If you're working with, say, Charles Schwab, you have to be a little bit more wealthy,
Yeah.
have over $100,000, But if you're working with, say, Fidelity or whatever, it really just depends. So I would just
makes
make sure
sense.
you're working with different people and kind of seeing what their dollar amounts are.
I love that.
Yeah.
And one more tip that I would give people, and I got this out of Richest Man in Babylon, and
Yeah.
it was definitely true when I did it for myself. A lot of times you think that you are completely tapped out. You have no money
Right.
to afford anything.
Right.
And like you said, once you do that financial exercise, you realize like there's a lot of things on here that I absolutely did not have to
Right,
do.
right,
Right.
Absolutely.
Cut 10%. 10%. Whatever it is that
Right.
you make, cut 10%. If you make $4,000 in a month, 400, just try
Right.
1 month taking $400 and putting it in your savings and living off of 3,600.
Yeah.
Try your best, right? You'll be surprised how many people find out, oh, I actually could do that. I was spending minimum $400 trying to eat out.
Yeah.
I was spending $400 going out to the club. I was spending $400 shopping every single month. And I'm thinking that I don't have any money
Right.
to save.
Right.
In reality, I do have some money to save. And over the course of the year, 12 months at $4,000, that's $4,800. That's almost $5,000 that you could have in a savings, and you're one step closer.
Mhm.
Now, you could have zero. I know $5,000 isn't a lot,
Right.
but you could have $0 in your savings at the end of the year.
Exactly.
Or you could be building discipline and building a plan that is creating a habit in you that says, yo, I'm going to make sure I pay myself first. I'm going to take care of my savings or debt, whatever. That
Right,
5,000 could be that outstanding
right,
credit card debt
right.
that you have. You have to take the steps to better your financial journey one step at a time.
Exactly.
It is not an overnight thing, right? Because most of us are not about to come up on tens, hundreds, or millions of dollars out of nowhere,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you have to take what you have. You have to do step by step incremental improvements. So that when you look back on it, you're like, man, I got that one thing off my back. Now I can move on to the next one.
Exactly.
Time's going to move regardless. You might as well be moving towards a goal rather than staying in the same place.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah, and definitely going on to the question about working with different financial advisors. So that for me with my clients, I work with them wherever they're at.
Mhm.
So I know that definitely like financial advisors, and I've worked with people from different industries that they won't touch you. They won't touch your account if you have unless you have less than 250,000.
Okay.
If you're under that amount, they're not even going to try to work with you. So for me, when it comes to education, I work with all different types of clients. Definitely, if you're making a little bit more, we have more that we can work with.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that I'm helping people from all different ages and all different kind of walks of life, and also working with different seminar setups, whatever. So we're not just working on one client, but we can work with many people as possible.
I love
So
that.
Good. So,
Yeah.
question now for you. I heard you say if you're not making that much money,
Mhm.
then you wouldn't necessarily you will work with them, you talk to them, but you're more so give them homework.
Yeah.
What's that look like?
So homework is based off. I mean, so if they're looking at, so I had a client that I was working with her credit cards, and actually we actually, so I'm more interested in seeing the intent of the client to start working with me.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing that homework, I love people that it doesn't. I know we're talking about dollar amounts, but really, if I see that intent that you're really trying to make it, then I'll work with you. You know what I'm saying? So with her, I mean, she was, we actually got her out of credit card debt. And by the time it was over like a year cycle that we got her out of credit card debt, got her start saving, and then also she started her first investment account. So that was over a year. So it was kind of like just she started with not much, but then we ended up with a lot. So for her, it was okay. We had to start with shorter meetings to say, okay, I'm gonna look at your credit card. Let's make sure that we can pay this out by the next cycle. And then looking at her budget to say, okay, we can take that out. And if she did not have that done, then we weren't able to meet for the next time. So yeah, I'm not. So when it comes to being a financial educator, again, I'm like a coach too. If you're gonna show up and say, okay, I haven't done anything, and I'm like, okay, how
Yeah.
serious are you about
Yeah.
this?
That's
You're putting
good.
the initiative on them
It
because
has
that's
to
what
be.
matters.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you a question about your
Sure.
journey,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
First, how old are you right now?
How
How
old?
old? Yep.
Yes.
I'll say 35.
36. Good.
All
good
right.
job.
Cool.
Good
Cool. All right. So you're 36.
Yeah.
This journey,
Uh-huh.
learning all of these different things.
Yeah.
Did you learn these things early on, and
Mm-hmm.
it was applied, and you never really had to go through too much turmoil in your financial journey? Or was there a time period in your life where you may have been broke, or you may have been down and out and
That's good.
struggling and
That's
had to
good.
learn these
That's
things?
good.
How tell us your journey.
Sure, man. I mean, I think first of all, it was seeing my dad and my parents came from Nigeria. They didn't
Mhm.
really have a lot of finances, so we didn't get to learn about it.
Yeah.
And so I went to the Marine Corps, 18 through 22. Started making some money, so that
Yeah.
was really cool. But then after I got out of the Marine Corps, I didn't know really know what to do with that money. And
Mhm.
so even getting out of college, it was kind of finding myself and realizing that money wasn't really, wasn't. I still had to kind of work at it,
Mhm.
but once I started really discovering, so it was my first job. I started doing insurance right out of college and everything. But it was also finding my passion that things
Mhm.
started changing around.
Mhm.
I started seeing that I wanted to make sure I start to work people on their finances. So I have a different way of meeting with people. It's not just like I don't want to just meet with you, kind of just tell you what to do and just go away. But as soon as I started finding out my own process and started doing things my way in a way that really resonated with me, and also making sure sometimes I can even pray with clients, that's when things started changing around. And then also once I started saying, okay, if this is something that I haven't been taught as a kid, and this is where I get really passionate about because we haven't been taught finances in our schools.
Yeah.
If I can start learning about this stuff, then I can start seeing the difference. And once I started teaching myself, it was around after I got my first job. Once I started teaching myself, everything started changing. But before that, I mean, I didn't know what to do because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But once you start self-educating yourself, then things will start to really change around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
That is amazing.
That's a
Actually.
journey though, because
yeah.
for most people, that is exactly how it is.
Yeah.
You don't have an introduction to it. There's nobody to really lead you there, and you have to
Exactly.
figure it out on your own.
Mhm.
And so, for people that are listening, if you feel like you keep bumping your head and you just don't know, right? This is an opportunity as you're listening to this episode. That's why we wanted to bring this to
Yeah.
you, is so that you can get a resource, right? You have him. You can reach out to him and work with him on coaching. He's also mentioned multiple podcasts and books that you can pick up to start your journey. Let's not make any more excuses about our financial journey now that you have the information, right? Because people can say all the time, well, I didn't know. Well, now you know.
Right.
So I need all of you guys, if you know there are areas that you're cutting corners, and I'm taking this advice for myself as well. If there are areas that you are cutting corners on your financial journey, this is the time to say, hey, I need to take a different approach to this. Because there's some unhealthy habits that you can build that will last until you change them. And speaking on unhealthy habits, I have one more question I want to ask you about. Because you might have a different opinion than me.
Okay.
Now, I've seen a trend come about in finance and in business from companies, and that is companies like Klarna, Afterpay, right? That allow you to buy things without paying for them in that moment, and they're allowing you to do it with no interest, right? You can pay it back with no interest. What are your thoughts on that? Is this something that people should utilize, or is it not, and it's building unhealthy?
So it really depends,
mindsets?
right? If you have the money, if you have so it's kind of like buying stuff on credit. If you have the money to pay it on credit, then that could be okay. But whenever you get to that point where you don't have that money and you're trying to put these stuff on kind of like a layaway plan, if you will, you can get to the point where you're starting to live beyond your means, and that becomes really dangerous because you will have to pay for that bill later on. So I think really analyzing and saying, first of all, do you really need that thing that you're trying to buy? And then saying if you want to put yourself in that position. But I would say I would err on the side of caution there. It's not bad unless you have the money to pay for it, but also just making sure that you don't get into a place where you're overspending.
That's great. No, I like that. That's all good info.
Yeah.
I'm just taking it all in.
What I'm noticing, I had this conversation with my girlfriend and her twin sister, because I used to tell them, I'm like, y'all gonna start using that Afterpay stuff, and it's gonna get addicting, and you're gonna find yourself in a position where you're like, all right, I need to stop. This is getting unhealthy.
Right. And that's the thing when it comes to like anything that does not cause any pain when it comes to the spending cycle or the spending habits. Especially if it starts hitting like dopamine,
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, you got new money in your, oh, you just bought this thing. You're gonna keep replicating those things. Whatever you appreciate. So if like these places are rewarding you for doing these things, and you're not experiencing that money's being eaten out of your account, you're gonna keep doing it without feeling the effects until later on, until it's too late.
Absolutely. Shannon Sharp even said that they were talking about Keon Coleman. He had y'all probably saw the clip. He had just bought these Montclair jackets, but he bought them at Macy's, right? He said, I buy my jackets in the spring because it's cheaper. He's like, I get that from my mom. He's like, they're 50% off. And Shannon Sharp was just talking about the fact that, he's going to be fine with his finances because what a lot of players do is they spend the money before they have it, right? And so we do the same thing in our life is we know our check hits next Friday or we know it hits at the end of the month. And so we're like, I can buy this on Afterpay or Klarna or use my credit card or whatever, and then I'm just going to pay it off whenever I get paid. But that's usually not what ends up happening.
Exactly.
What ends up happening is you go buy it on Afterpay, right? And then when you get paid,
pay the minimum.
You pay the minimum because you're like, you know what? Something just popped up. The guys or the girls want to go out this weekend. I can use that money for this. This bill just popped up. I had this unexpected expense. Life has a funny way, and money always has a funny way of hitting you right when you don't want it to hit. And that is one of my main reasons as to why I really caution against people using certain things like that, because you're building a habit, like you said, that says, oh, I can have it even though I don't have the money for it. And you're making spending habits based on money you do not yet have in your account. And that's always going to be a very risky position to be in, because what happens if it doesn't go the way you want to?
One thing I want to make sure we talk about too, are you guys also investing by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what is y'all's investing strategy, tactic? What do you guys do?
I'm currently not investing.
Okay, gotcha.
For me, I do at least 10 to 15% of what I make a month.
And what are you putting in? If
it's about,
you mind my asking?
No, it's fine. I was doing about $1,000 a month. Now that I'm not employed, I'm self-employed, and I'm doing things on my own, it's down to like 500.
Gotcha.
But I was doing about $1,000 a month.
And also, let me say this: investing in your business is still investing too.
Very true.
You guys are also investing.
It's a very good point.
That's very real, right? So even if your 10% is like, okay, I'm putting inside that into my own business, getting a studio space, that's still investing. So let's make sure we say that. But also, I want to make sure, especially talking about business owners, is something that we make sure we talk about as well. Making sure you're inside the right investments, because the thing that you have when it comes to investing, to make sure you're getting to that $1 million mark, if you're trying to get to that point where you're basically you're able to be financially free, investing sooner rather than later is where you need to go.
Yeah.
So the earlier you start investing, at least putting 10% of your income, and say, the S&P 500, which you can talk about that. We want to have a sit down and talk, is to making sure that money is growing for you at least 10 to 12%. And of course, I want to make sure we talk about that, because I think people aren't really talking about investing, and so they're not able to grow as fast as they want, or get to that dollar amount that they want when they
Yeah.
get to be a little bit older.
That's good.
Yeah.
The time value is the most important aspect.
Yes,
of
exactly. The
investments.
more time in the market rather than timing the market.
I love that.
Exactly.
All right, that was all my questions. Did you have any?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Okay, bet. So let's
Okay.
move on to our Let's
Sure.
Talk letter. All right, so we like doing our Let's Talk letter
Mhm.
where we bring in either circumstances that we've encountered throughout the week from other people. They've asked us for advice,
Yeah.
something that we've seen, or things that have been submitted by our listeners. So I have a letter for today, and I want to get your opinion on it first
Okay.
before we dive
You
into
heard
it with
this?
other people.
No, I don't know the letter.
So yeah, we like to do this off guard. So
Yeah.
Yes,
it's
good,
fresh.
good.
All right, so there's a brother who's going through a financial transition in his life.
Mhm.
He can no longer afford the luxurious lifestyle that he was giving his girlfriend for a long time. She doesn't seem to understand that change. He's struggling with it, and he's wondering how he should go about addressing this with her. Should he try to continue to fulfill the standard that he was living up to before? Is he failing by not being in that position? What is your advice to
There's
him?
so much in that question.
Yeah.
First of all, no. Cut her loose. No. She's a gold digger. No.
Hey, look,
Sorry.
not necessarily
no.
not true. It could be true.
I'm just saying what we're all thinking right now. No. But I would definitely say you want to make sure you're sitting down with her and saying, hey, this is where I'm at right now. There's a lot to be done. He has to make sure he sits down with himself and make sure he kind of says, okay, I'm not there anymore. I have to start making some changes. And really start to make sure he knows that his success is not determinant on his job or whatever it is that's changing right now. To really assess his value, and then he can start assessing his relationships as well.
Yeah.
So at some point he has to sit down with her, and if he gets any sort of pushback, I have to be completely honest with. If he gets any sort of, like, if she becomes angry, you kind of know what she was there for in the first place.
Yeah.
So he has to really check that, and if she's really down with it, she's really down with you.
I love that. What do you think, Rex?
That's good. It just makes me
Yeah.
think. I know a couple that was in that position, right? The man brought in a lot of money, provided a certain lifestyle, the dinners, the fancy this, the fancy that, and then things hit the fan.
Yeah.
But he said, "Hey, babe, I'm not gonna lie to you. You might have to go back to work." And although she didn't like it, she did it.
Yeah.
She went back to work just to help the family,
Yeah.
right? And there was a conversation, right? How long do you think this is going to go on? Is this something that's going to be permanent, or do you think that we're going to be able to bounce back and I can be able to be back at home? So it was a conversation that was had, but it kind of goes to what you said.
Yeah.
If there is pushback, now I can understand the pushback if you led with money
Right.
Yeah.
and you gave her this lifestyle.
Yeah.
You showed her that you got it, you can spend it, you don't mind spending it, you're not counting the cost. Then if you pull something back after she's experienced it, her whole world can be coming to a hit, right? But you got to be mindful of how she responds to you after the blow.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a girlfriend, right?
Yeah, it was a girlfriend.
Okay.
So that also changes things too. That changes a lot of stuff
It does.
too.
How long was it?
I don't know. He didn't say.
Yeah.
But judging off of what I know about it,
Yeah.
it was about 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
She put in some time there.
Yeah.
We gotta factor this in.
You have to factor that in.
No
I mean,
facts.
she's been
around.
there
Yeah.
with you. But I mean, hopefully it's in a loving relationship. I mean, we kind of have this situation where you have a wife who's like, okay, honey, I get it. Let's talk about how long this is gonna last, because I don't like it. If she's trying to have trying to have an open and authentic conversation, then you know that this is something you really want to start riding with. But if it's like 3 months,
Yeah.
yeah, you're like,
No,
you lose your job,
absolutely.
and just, let it go.
Yeah.
Okay.
One
that's
thing I would
good.
say is, like, first off, he got to have a plan.
Yeah.
I think because I've been in this exact position before where things change, right? And mine wasn't because I wasn't making as much money. It's because I knew I was about to buy an investment property, and I needed to start putting way more, all that disposable income I had. I said, no, I need to put all this towards a down payment. You need to be saving this up. And so I had to have that conversation
Yeah.
with my girlfriend and tell her like, hey, I know that usually we can go out, we can spend easily $300 to $500 a month just doing things together. That is not what we're going to be doing anymore. And I had to tell her like, look, let's have a conversation about this, because I wasn't communicating it at first, and so she was getting frustrated like, why don't you want to go out on dates? Why is it that every time, I bring something up, you don't really want to, take it serious or put any energy in it like you used to? And then I'm like, bro, because it's expensive. Is this that, and that? But she's looking at it like, I don't understand what's different.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed. And then I had to tell her like, look, okay, I don't have the money to put towards this anymore because there's a plan I'm working on right now, and I need all this extra money.
Oh my gosh.
So it's $100. I had to tell her, like, look, I have $100 a month that we can spend on fun. You can pick wherever you want to go. I don't care if we go to the movies. I don't care if we go to dinner. But everything else that we do is gonna have to be free
Yeah.
once this $100 is passed. But the other part about it is you're also setting an example to her in that moment. One, about how you'll deal with changes and conflict in life, right? Can you adapt? Two, about your ability to stick to your word. Because if you can stick to your word and be disciplined and tell her no, even though she wants certain things, but it's not in line with the goal, she can trust that in any other area of life, you will stick to the plan, no matter what influences are coming and hitting you.
Yeah.
You don't want to be wavering. You don't want to be the person that, because somebody feels bad about it, now you throw your whole plan out the window to make them feel good.
Right. And there's a verse that ties into this too. Like, without a vision, the people perish.
Yes.
But then with a vision, what the people flourish. That
Exactly.
You've kind of flipped it around. So your experience and your role in that part is predicated on you being a leader and kind of letting her know what the vision is. Where are we going? Is this worth
100%.
it? And she says yes to that, then you're leading her
love
in that
that.
direction. So with you with the investment property, or with you and say the business is saying, okay, this is going to be worth it. We're going here, and we're going, and you're going to follow me, because I know when we get there, it's going to be worth it. This is our promised land.
Yeah.
And so it's going to take some sacrifices at
Yeah.
some time, but if you're able to sell it to her, then she's going to be down.
That's real.
That's good.
And the best way to sell it to her is with your actions, right? Like,
100%.
who are you on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of cats out there that are visionaries with no implementation and no actual action. So you're sitting there always selling what it's going to be. Oh, this is going to make us rich, babe. And it's like, I don't see you out here hustling.
Right.
I don't see you out here putting in the work.
Wow.
I see you out here blowing your money, doing whatever you want, and then telling me that I need to be patient on you to be able to get this together when you're not putting in any work. Why should a woman believe in you? Why should she stick around during the hard times if you have not done anything to showcase who you are as a man from a disciplined perspective? A lot of women can get behind a man even if he doesn't have money, if she sees that he has real promise, real action, and real planning. Like, okay, he a hard worker, and I see that he's willing to actually put this work in for this dream. I'll rock with him. But when you sorry like that and you not even putting in the work, I don't think a woman should stick around.
Yeah, they should. No, I'm telling you.
No.
And let me say this last thing, and then because I've been having a good time here, just feasting. Right. Normally I have a lot to say, but this is one of the areas where I'm still growing and still developing. So we really appreciate you for even coming here and spitting gems.
Very authentic conversation, man.
Yes, sir. So this is verse I came across, Proverbs 14, verse 23. All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. That wraps up everything we just said.
Yes.
Oh my God. And even, just even with this, like, we can talk. I love having this conversation, but we have to make sure we make actionable steps.
Yes.
100%.
And even in the space of, like, for me being on podcasts and everything, I want to make sure I'm also leading a life that this is okay. I want to work with Ikechi on this, whatever.
Yes.
Because I don't want to just be talking about this. I want to be living this, especially as a Christian man. I want to make sure I'm living in a way that people can say, okay, God is glorifying him in this way. So it's not really following Ikechi, it's following what Ikechi is doing, it's following Christ. So I think with this whole thing, man, we have to make sure that we're okay. So one of my favorite like mentors, whatever, is Jim Rohn. Says you have to check your results frequently. If you're not getting the right results, you have to make sure you're not, like, you have to pause and really reevaluate to see what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
love that.
Yeah.
So let's try and give real quick a tangible just step breakdown of what they should do. So I'm going to throw some things out there.
Sure.
You tell me the order that they should go.
Okay.
Because I've heard a few things this episode. And Rex, if I miss anything, throw them out there too.
Gotcha.
Paying God.
Paying God. Yes.
Right. Putting your money towards God. Right. The things that you're watching and educating yourself with.
Yes. Improving your skills.
Improving your skills.
Yep.
Okay. So we got improving your skills. We got paying God. resources and materials.
Yes. All
Right.
those books. Yep.
3, let's say a plan.
A plan. Looking
Okay.
at your finances on a regular basis. For
I
sure.
love that.
For sure.
And let's see, what's a fifth one? What's a good
Okay.
fifth one? Action.
Yeah, I
Right.
gotta say
Action.
work.
Actually
Yeah,
execute.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's
Action.
the order of those?
That is a great thing. So make sure you pay God. So check with God for
Okay.
sure. Make sure you look at your finances on a regular basis
Mhm.
for sure. Improving your skills.
Okay.
And with this stuff, I would say that there is definitely you want to make sure you're doing all these. You can do these things at a once you have a plan, you can do them on a continual basis. So it's
Yeah.
not like okay, I need to just honor God once and then not do until the next
Yeah.
month, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. And also making sure you're reading these books. So so if you're saying these 5 things that we're talking about,
Yeah.
then I would say for this whole month, I want to make sure I do these 5 things.
Mhm.
I'm going to find a time to honor God every day,
Mhm.
right? Which we should be doing. I want to make time to read this book every single day,
Yeah.
right? I'm gonna look at my finances once or twice a week, right? And then what was the other things we said? Like make sure
You're
what
executing on it. And you
executing,
got your
yeah,
plan.
and that is kind of executing the
Yeah.
plan as well. So, with these 5 things, it's not just necessarily like a one-time thing. It's making sure you kind of have these habits and habits. I know we have 6 minutes, but I also recommend another book as well called Atomic Habits.
Oh yes.
So if
Good book.
you read this, you
Yes.
check this
Yeah,
out,
Yeah.
yeah.
absolutely.
So really with these, it's not just like an order thing, it's more
Mhm.
just like a habitual thing.
Yes.
Because your habits are like seeds that produce certain results. And I have a thing that said, okay, have a quote that says, your habits are the gateway to the future that you want. So basically, like if you kind of continue doing the right habits and you focus on the habits, you're gonna start yielding those results. So
Yeah.
if I'm honoring God every single day, if I'm giving every single day, if I'm saving every time I get my paycheck, if I'm reading a book every single day, I'm gonna start seeing those fruits.
Love that.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
That's
That's
good.
amazing.
Well, all right. I think that's everything that we have for
Yes,
today.
sir.
That was our personal finance and budgeting episode. Now, where we're gonna go next to wrap this up, I want Rex us to hit up our sponsors. We're also, Ketchy, you can promote
Sure,
yourself and
sure,
all the
sure.
things that you have going on as well, and then we'll close out. So, Rex, why don't you go with yours first?
Yes, sir. So, if you go to Rex Howard Jr. on Amazon, you'll see 2 journals. This is one of them. This is Until Tomorrow journal. This is a reflective journal, and it leads with affirmations starting with I am, I will, and I can. Go check that out on Amazon. Follow us on all of our platforms. Our pages are growing. So we first want to say I appreciate every single one of you guys for
Absolutely.
following us, for liking, for sharing, for subscribing. Um, it doesn't go unnoticed, so we appreciate that.
Yeah. So for me, you guys know I'm a best-selling author. You can go to my website, www.milesthemillennial.com. Change your mind, change your life. A young adult guide to fulfillment. You can get your copy there. If you're looking for a motivational speaker to come speak at your schools or your nonprofit organizations to any of your teenagers, your young adults, they're going through life, they're trying to figure it out. They need some motivation, some focus, clear vision. Hit me up. You can also go through my website for that or reach out to me on any platform that I'm on. Ikechi.
Sure. Yeah. I think the best thing I can talk about is my personal financial practice is to making sure that we can sit down with people. We have an office we can go to. And I want to make sure we do with finances. We can also be praying about your finances. So we're not just saying this is what Ikechi says. We can also make sure you're praying. We're praying to God and saying, okay, what does he want us to do with our finances? And also the magic is kind of sitting down and making sure we have a plan. So it doesn't matter where you are. I want to meet you exactly where you are to make sure we make changes for your finances and make sure we make a difference. Yeah, just wherever you're at, we can make it happen.
Love that. Where can the people find you?
So that'll be ikechiukazu.com. Hopefully you have the
Oh, we'll put it
my
there.
name
Yeah,
there
it'll be up.
because it is, yeah, it is a long name. But my name means God's strength, so I was trying to make sure that's
That's
where I'm
good.
going. I used to go by Ike,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But I want to make sure I'm teaching my culture. I'm Nigerian, so Ikechi Ukazu, and find me there. I also have a book called Chinwe and Obi, which is a love story. I'm also creative as well, and I'm also working on my second book. We'll maybe talk about another time because I want to make sure that okay, really quickly. Also, with my books, it's also a form of me also creating wealth and putting value into the world, but also just putting out my ideas and out there,
Yeah.
everything out there. So, first things first, I want to make sure I have a conversation with you about your finances. So definitely hit me up on Instagram, ikechiukazu.com. Ikechi Ukazu, also on my website, ikechiukazu.com. And also I write different articles about finances, faith. I talk about church, whatever, mental health. I talk about all these sort of things to make sure we're putting good information out in the world. So let's have a conversation.
Yes,
Love
sir.
that, man. So, what we do want to do as a thank you for coming out,
Yeah.
being on our
Oh,
platform, and providing
books
all
are for
this
me.
education. We wanted to
me.
bless you with both of these
Thank you guys so
books
much.
as a token of our appreciation, man.
Oh, man.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully, they can be a beautiful part of your journey.
Thank you guys so much.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate
This
it.
is definitely an honor, and I just want to say I love the fact that you guys are doing this. To put yourself out there like this is not easy, especially with there are a lot of podcasts, but I can tell. But I don't know if you guys know the viewership. We prayed before we got here,
Absolutely.
right? So these guys aren't playing with this. They're trying to make sure they're doing this in a way that is honoring God and also putting out value in the world. So just definitely honor to you guys. It's amazing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Well,
that.
if you don't mind, because one thing they don't know is when I walked in today, I saw you praying for a gentleman,
Mm.
right? Which was a blessing because you didn't even know that brother. So for the brothers that's listening, for the sisters that are listening and trying to get their finances in order, do you mind to share a prayer over the
Sure, man.
finances, over everybody that's watching and the people in the room?
Yeah, and that's crazy. That was just such an organic moment, man.
Yeah.
This guy's name is Doug. Should I say? Anyway, whatever. Let's go ahead and pray. Father God, we want to thank you for this afternoon. We want to thank you for what you're doing, Lord, that this is a seed for what you're trying to bring into the world, Lord God, as far as the abundant life that we're meant to have. Your word says that that you came, the enemy came to steal, kill, and destroy, but you came to give us life and life more abundantly. And that's with our finances, but also that's internally as your sons and your daughters. So God, I pray that you first let us know spiritually who we are in you. There is no wealth that this world can provide that will fill the internal void that we have of knowing who we are in you and our identity in you. So let us start there as far as finding who our wealth and our identity is. And as we're doing that, Lord God, I ask you make every single thing in Jesus' name to fall into place. Our finances, our relationships, our businesses, everything that we have in mind that we're trying to bring into fruition in this world, I ask you to put it in place. But first, we put you first. So God, I want to pray your blessing over this podcast. I pray you keep these men doing what you want them to do. There's so many worldly influences, things that are trying to pull us different ways, Lord God. But I ask you to pull us directly towards you. And for anyone who's watching this podcast, Lord God, I ask you to start to bless them as well. Start to create communities. No one has all the answers. There's no one who knows as much as you know. So God, I pray that you start to guide us to wisdom. And I pray you start connect us to have really genuine relationships and connections. We ask all these things in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. We appreciate that, big dog.
That's amazing, man. So
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been a powerful episode. Make sure you guys implement those 5 steps that we talked about for your plan and get to executing on them. And we'll come back next week. We're going to be talking about credit education and credit repair.
Yes, sir.
And thank you all so much for tuning in.
We'll see you
Peace.
next week.